What's happening in Sudan is a genocide and an occupation by a UAE-backed militia called the RSF, or the Rapid Support Forces. To understand this, we have to go back to the creation of the United Arab Emirates.
The United Arab Emirates, or UAE, was formed in 1971 by direct intervention of the United States. Like Israel, the UAE was built up as a client state to secure Western interests and dominance in the Middle East. In exchange for protecting U.S. oil routes and acting as a regional enforcer, the Emirati royal families got to enjoy a life of immense luxury. The U.S. supplied weapons, military training, and political backing, ensuring that the Emirati monarchy could hold power without challenge. This arrangement turned the UAE into one of America's most loyal allies in the region, its major defense partner. It all started when oil was discovered in regions that are now Abu Dhabi and Dubai in the 1960s. The U.S. wanted to secure the soil after Britain announced in 1968 that it would draw its military from the region. Unlike in countries like Afghanistan and Iraq, where the U.S. relied on direct military invasions to secure its interests, in the UAE it took a softer colonial strategy, building up loyal monarchies and securing oil through partnerships with the royal family in exchange for protection and luxury. This allowed the U.S. to transform the UAE into a willing defense arm of its empire, hosting bases, supplying weapons, and protecting power across the Middle East and Africa. So in 1971, the US, along with the UK, helped found the Federation of the Seven Emirates, which came to be called the United Arab Emirates. Full citizenship in the UAE was then restricted to people who could trace their lineage back to the royal families. American oil companies like Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron gained privileged access to the UAE's oil reserves. In return, the US made sure those profits flowed back into the royal family wealth and US arms sales. The UAE quickly took a page out of the neo-colonial playbook and sought to expand as an empire through the pillaging of the African continent. From smuggling minerals out of the Democratic Republic of Congo, to funding wars in Libya, to land grabs in the Horn of Africa. Emirati elites have treated the continent as a backyard for extraction and profit.
Meanwhile, in Sudan, people were rising up against a corrupt regime. In 2018 and 2019, Sudanese masses led a powerful revolution against decades of corruption and mismanagement under previous President Omar al-Bashir. People demanded better standards of living and representative governance. Bashir was eventually removed, but what came after was a fragile transitional period, one filled with hope but also uncertainty. And this is where the UAE saw its opportunity.
In 2023, the UAE took advantage of this political power vacuum. It poured weapons, money, fighters, and political backing into the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, a private militia stemming out of a previous militia alliance called the Janjaweed. The RSF launched a violent campaign to seize Sudan by force, turning people's anger at their government into fuel for its occupation. They destroyed infrastructure and wiped out entire lands and family lineages, massacring and displacing local communities at rates never before seen in modern history. The UAE flooded in the resources to make this possible. This wasn't an internal conflict. It was a siege, funded and armed by a foreign power. In return, the UAE has extracted billions of dollars worth of gold and agricultural resources from Sudan, and positioned itself to seize control of vast stretches of land, fueling its wealth while leaving Sudanese communities in ruins.
Eventually, early in 2025, the Sudanese military managed to push the RSF out of the capital of Khartoum and out of the Al Jazeera region. The RSF's military defeats throughout central regions resulted in the militia shifting into its current strategy, annexation of the resource-rich west of Sudan. In Darfur and Kordofan, regions already scarred by decades of violence and marginalization under the Bashir regime, the RSF has entrenched itself, carrying out an ethnic cleansing campaign to massacre and drive out the indigenous populations in order to take control of the land and resources. Many in Sudan have taken up arms to fight with the very military they were resisting against in 2019, because it remains the only armed force fighting against the RSF, in determination that after the RSF is expelled, civilian-led transition will continue.
The people of Sudan are resisting a brutal genocide and a foreign-backed occupation, orchestrated by the UAE and carried out through its militia, the RSF. But our fight is bigger than Sudan. It is a fight against an imperial system that allows foreign powers to carve up our lands, to steal our resources, and to decide who gets to live in luxury while others are condemned to starvation and terror. Every act of resistance in Sudan is part of a global struggle against neo-colonialism, against the idea that our lives and our futures can be sacrificed for profit and power. Just as we rose up in 2019 against dictatorship, now we rise against an illegal occupation. What will happen in Sudan when we defeat the RSF, when we expel imperial intervention and influence from our lands, when we rebuild our institutions, and when we choose governance led by us, for us? It will be a blueprint for liberation from neo-colonialism in the 21st century, forged in the face of the greatest crisis in modern history.